Thank you so much for your talk. I'm also an American Jew who grew up conservative Masorti movement, and then went on to two-state solution advocacy, mostly through J Street. So I definitely relate to what you're saying.
Could you explain what J Street is for
Sure.
people who might not be familiar with it?
J Street is a political organization in the U.S. that advocates for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that's peaceful, respects democracy, and respects the rights of both Jews and Muslims and all other groups in Israel-Palestine. So I really relate to that. What you're talking about, I agree with what you're saying. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit more about identity. Since coming to the UK to study 2 months ago, I've been trying to figure out where the British Jewish climate is on Israel. I know that their version of J Street, Yachad, was accepted into their Jewish President's Council, whereas, for instance, in the US, it was not, J Street was not accepted.
And I should jump in and say this relates to AIPAC, that AIPAC and J Street, AIPAC doesn't want J Street to gain influence because then AIPAC would lose influence.
Sure.
Yeah. So what's your question
but
exactly?
I'm just wondering how you see the difference between identity factors in British Jewish dialogue on Israel versus American Jewish dialogue.
That's really interesting. I mean, inevitably we get into gross generalizations here, but I think that for a lot of complicated reasons, there's more freedom to be critical of Israel in Britain and in Europe, if you're a Jew, than there is in the United States. There's more balanced reporting in the media here than in the United States. Critics would say there's more anti-Semitism here than in the United States. There's some truth to that. The first time I experienced to my face anti-Semitism was at Oxford, actually. That's no longer the case, but I'll never forget it. Like, someone offered me a ham and cheese sandwich, and I made a joke, and I said, I'm Jewish and a vegetarian, and they said, worst of both worlds. So that was rather shocking, but they really said that. But, I'm just hesitating because these are all really gross generalizations. I think there's, America's in an unholy alliance with Israel. There's no question about it. Some of what we're seeing in Ferguson, believe it or not, the Anti-Defamation League paid for police chiefs in cities across America to go be trained in crowd control by Israelis. And then they came back and used techniques that keep populations subjugated in the West Bank and Gaza. They're using those techniques in the inner cities in Ferguson and across America, where there's been violent crackdowns on protesters. So there is this unholy alliance, and it has to do with money, not ideology, not religion, although there's an overlay of evangelical Christians embracing Israel for their own imponderable ideas about end times. But really it's money. And I can't tell you more about Jewish identity in Britain because I think identity in Britain is so in flux right now, because of its diversity, its increasing diversity.